Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Facing the Gates podcast. I am Bailey.
I'm Michael.
And I'm David.
And I'm Bailey.
Yeah.
And this is the Facing the Gate. Okay. Anyway, we're going to start these first few episodes out with some interviews between each of us, just so you guys can get to know us and you will be able to understand like the nuances in our views, because you'll think, when you think of Christian or atheist or agnostic, you will have certain things you think of, and this is our opportunity to kind of break those boundaries and assumptions about those things so that you can know us for us and not for the simple label that you slap onto it. Because, everybody's unique and a little bit different. So today, I am being interrogated by Michael and David. So I've told them to come up with questions and then not tell me what they are. So I guess I'm going to hand it over to you to interrogate me now.
All right. Well, to get it started, what do you consider yourself religiously?
A Christian.
All right. Any certain branch or section?
Okay. So I grew up in a Baptist home, but I left. Well, really, my whole family left that church for a number of reasons. I think we all had our own different reasons, and then we ended up going to a mega church for a little bit. It was also a Baptist church, but conveniently, their pastor and their music leader left like a month after we started. So then we stopped going to that church. And, it was a different change of pace because they had like a more contemporary service as opposed to like, your traditional like hymns and, like your regular Baptist service. And then, so that was different. And then the Sunday school was a little bit more focused for your age group. I heard what the term apologetics was for the first time and never heard that, which is basically defense of the faith, why you believe what you believe. I never heard that at the church I grew up in and didn't really flesh it out at the second church I went to, but I definitely dove into that years later. So basically after we left that church, which we weren't really members. We only went there for about a month or two. And then we went around to a couple other churches, but I have not been a member of any church in like 5 or 6 years. It's been a long time. So I'm still kind of just searching through the denominations right now. I guess technically I'm non-denominational, but I think if I were to say where my bias is, I'm leaning more towards Orthodox Christianity. But I'm not 100% like definitely in that camp. I'm just kind of exploring the options right now.
So you're like on Tinder, but for Christianity.
I guess
Christian mingle.
That way. Christian mingle.
So, as you said, you're Christian. Kind of, what does the term Christian mean to you? And also, how do you think that describes you, who you are?
Are you asking like what is Christianity to me? Was that the
essentially what does Christianity mean to you, and kind of how does that describe you, your actions, how it affects your life?
So to me, it's like on one hand it's a worldview, on the other hand it's a lifestyle. That sounds really cheesy and cliche, but it shapes the way you view the world and the way you perceive things, obviously, but also it is, to me, so fundamental that it changes the way I act in certain situations, the way I perceive certain things, the way I think about the future or the past or whatever. Me being who I am, I'm a very like goal-oriented person, and like I want to try and improve on a lot of things. So I think Christianity also kind of happens to align with that. Because you're always trying to grow and become a better person in that way. So that's kind of what it means. That might be a little bit vague, but hopefully that answers the question.
I think it does pretty well.
Yeah.
A little general, but it does suit you. And kind of, what are some generalizations that people would think, especially as you said, coming from originally a Baptist church and then going to a
Southern
mega
Baptist.
church. Now thinking about more so Orthodox Christianity. Kind of what are some generalizations of kind of how you started and kind of your interest in Christianity?
I think like the broad generalizations in about Christianity in the broader sense are that a lot of Christians are judgmental, or they're out of touch, or they're narrow-minded or hateful people. And like, I'm not going to say that's not true for some of them, but I think the truly regenerative Christians that actually look into it and actually try to practice it in a way that is legitimate, then it is a beneficial process for them. I think, generalizations about like Baptist churches are like fire and brimstone and pastors that will just go on forever and ever, and then people that sleep during the preaching, and
That was me.
those, I mean, it happened.
Yeah, I mean, and if y'all know, we all attended the same Southern Baptist church, mainly like for myself, youth group, and we all went to different little churches during some times, but that's how we kind of met
Yeah.
before even school.
Yeah, and then like I would say probably, I guess the one generalization about like mega churches is like, it's very laid back, and the pastors in skinny jeans, and like the music leader always has an ego complex, and I don't think that was true with the place that I went to, because I think he made it very clear, like, this is for God, not for me.
But I mean,
I'm just leading it.
Yeah, but with, like, when people think of mega church, they usually think of like televangelist and that kind of cult of personality that follows it.
I think that follows more with like Pentecostalism,
yeah,
and like Word of Faith type churches like that.
Yeah, but the outsiders who hear mega church, it's kind of what's brought forth.
Yeah, I mean, most outsiders don't know the nuances of the different denominations, and to be fair, I didn't either, and I'm still learning about it. The only like generalization I know, or like negative thing about the Orthodox Church, is like nobody knows about them, because like they were just kind of like, the schism happened a long time ago, and nobody else talks about them anymore, and they don't really have a very big presence in the media or anything. It's always like Catholics or Protestants.
they kind of just do their own thing.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to me, I think they have like a better understanding of most of the theological doctrines. But I mean, again, a lot of it is very foreign to me because I grew up in a Baptist church. So I mean, there's questions I have, and I'm gonna ask somebody who's Orthodox at some point whenever I can get in contact with someone who will respond to my emails.
Yeah.
It's not busy.
Yeah, and one thing about the kind of generalizations, I know some people think this, but a lot of people kind of think more Orthodox style, more kind of that kind of intelligent side, versus Protestantism is very, especially in America, it's very emotional based. How do you kind of feel about that?
It depends, because some of the brightest thinkers are Protestants.
Yeah.
Like William Lane Craig, I believe, is Baptist. I don't want to say that for sure, but he's definitely some kind of he's definitely Protestant. Tim Keller is a Presbyterian pastor. I mean, these are names you guys don't know, but
Yeah.
Point is, like, a lot of the people that I do listen to, come from Protestant circles. I mean, of course, where I am now, I'm listening to like different podcasts from like all over the place. Like, I listen to N.T. Wright, who is a biblical scholar who goes to an Anglican church. I listen to a number of Orthodox podcasts. Like I said, I listen to some William Lane Craig and Tim Keller. So I mean, I'm kind of getting information from all over the places and trying to like sift through it and understand the differences. And some of it is not like, hey, we're going to teach you about the denominational beliefs. Some of it is just like Tim Keller is more of like a pastor, and obviously he's preaching, but he's preaching in New York, so he's preaching to a certain audience that's, I think, a little bit more engaging to me. William Lane Craig is like a philosopher and theologian. He's really smart, and some of the things he says are just like way over my head. But he's trying to, like, in his like Defenders class or his Reasonable Faith podcast. He also has a website. They're trying to like get the intellectual side of Christian belief out, and I mean, so like there's different directions with it, but I guess to answer your question, like, yeah, there are some very anti-intellectual or uninformed people that go to church, and I think those are, I would consider them just nominal believers who just believe because they were told to believe this, and this is what their parents told them, and they just went through with it, and if they didn't, then they're going to hell. And to me, that's a very shallow level of belief. Not only is it going to cause you problems when you face a major issue in your life, like what happens when somebody dies, what happens when everything in your life goes wrong, and you're like, oh, well, where's God? Why do I believe what I believe? Like, you're going to have some moment when you have to face the facts and question why you believe what you believe. So, I mean, like, the anti-intellectual or nominal belief is not enough, at least for me. I mean, I know some people that, like, that's all they need, but, like, I think if it really is the most important thing to you, then it needs to be something you look into. And the other thing I wanted to say was, like, there are certain people that want to make Christianity about getting to heaven and escaping hell, and I think that was definitely the place I grew up in, and that is not the point of Christianity. That is a thing, that is a facet about it, but it is not the thing, because if you are a Christian just because you don't want to go to hell, you're using God as a means to an end. You're not getting to know God as an actual person. You are using him. And that was something that I had to learn a few years ago, was that I don't need to use God as my magical wish fairy that I just pray to and hope that he does the thing.
That cheat code.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You kind of got to get to know him, and you got to understand things. And when I've kind of had a little bit more of a,
spiritual awakening,
I guess a humble approach to it, and not trying to be like, hey, God, give me this thing, that's when doors start to open for me, and my understanding starts to expand, and my interest in it starts to grow, and it's kind of just more of like a positive feedback loop type thing.
So would you say a lot of those people are more, instead of being truly religious, they're more habitual religious, where it's habit is what's been ingrained in them? It's not that they're even actively attending or
sorry about all the
practicing.
squeaking.
They're just more there to be there because it's what you're supposed to do, just like getting married before having kids, just like all of that. Do you feel they'd be more habitual instead of spiritual?
There are definitely people like that, but I don't want to sit here and say, oh, you're just a habitual nominal believer because that's all you do, because I only see what I see on the outside.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, well, you're not really a Christian, you're not really saved or whatever, because I'm not God, and I'm not going to make that claim on somebody. So I can make educated guesses based on what I see, and I think one way of tracking to see if somebody is a regenerative Christian is if you see the fruits of the Spirit. So like peace, love, kind, happiness, that kind of, I don't know all 7 of them, but if you,
it's like the opposite of the 7 deadly sins.
Well, there's like an antithesis of, there's like an opposite of the 7 fruits of the Spirit, which are like negative counter versions of them. So I mean, like if you're starting to see those things, then they're probably not growing in the Spirit or in their beliefs or in their faith or anything. So I mean, like it kind of goes to the faith versus works type thing. Like a lot of churches that I've gone to around here are like very heavily like, you are only saved by faith and that's all you need, and works that's a Catholic thing. Catholics are wrong, and you can't believe in that because they're Catholic and they're wrong. And that was the extent of the logic which never really made sense to me because they didn't actually interact with the arguments of Catholicism or anything. So I'm looking into that on my own. But I think, from what I understand, that regard, which we might have an episode on this later, but faith versus works is, like C.S. Lewis put it, it's kind of like two sides of a pair of scissors. They kind of go hand in hand. You kind of need both of them. Because, like, yes, you're justified by faith, but the works is something that follows from faith to show that you have the faith. So, I mean, like, when it comes to, like, whether or not someone's a legitimate Christian or not, you'll kind of see that in the way that they act.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I appreciate that input.
Again, going with it's not just a belief, it's a lifestyle as well.
I know it sounds like really cliche, like it's not just a belief, it's a lifestyle, but it is.
With a religion, it kind of has to encompass your whole world.
Yeah.
To be a religious belief, because it's not just something you think about, it's something you got to act on.
Right.
So would you say with your upbringing in your initial church, did you feel they should have taught more about the individual spirituality and how you and God connect instead of the overarching? If you want me to tie in, I can add a little bit to that.
Well, here's the thing. Based on... Sorry, dog. I almost kneed your dog in the face. So, Christianity came out of a collectivist culture. So, obviously, the writings and the teachings are going to be about everyone as a whole and supporting people and helping one another. And, you know, it's about, at its core, a community. But at the exact same time, it is about the individual, because you can't have a community if you don't have individuals within that community. So, yeah, it's both, but I don't know if I guess probably specify it a little bit more, because, like, I think my church kind of had a little bit of both. It just depends on what you mean.
What I mean is getting to truly understand your religion, getting to truly understand yourself, your place with God, you would have to be spiritually more engaged, more connected than just, hey, I go to church, I pray, I do this. Because that, yes, you're praying, but that might not be what you're meant to be doing. Because please forgive me if I butcher this, but God is always with you and you are always with God. Mm-hmm. So you should, I feel, with how I interpret things, that would mean you have a good personal relationship first before you can truly understand, before you can understand what Christianity is, why, and all that. But that's just me personally. I'm always...
And also viewed in the modern scope, since as kind of civilizations have evolved and everything, especially ever since like the 60s, 70s with the kind of spiritualization movements, we're very focused on the self, especially spiritually, physically, everything. Yeah, so I guess it could be more so, in another way rephrasing it, should they take a slightly more modern approach to grasping what the audience they're speaking to and helping them work kind of the lifestyle of Christianity in with them?
Yeah, so I mean, it is that's the other thing, is that individualism is a very modernized American thing. And again, I mean, like, you have to be aware of, like, the culture and the time that you're in. And when it comes to reading the Bible and stuff like that, you have to be aware of the culture and the time that was written, which is very far removed from where we are now. And the average person doesn't know the right tactics to believe that. And that's a whole
I guess thing, that also falls into that generalization you were talking about, where some people think, like, Christians are out of touch, especially with, like, pastors, because they might not just be giving it to, say, one person, how a modern lens, a modern scope would see it to be fit.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is when I remember hearing stories like Job, I have to wrap my head around that by thinking this man is really at his absolute, it's Job, right? And at his
Job.
absolute worst.
When God took everything from him, basically. Yeah.
And so he'd have to be spiritually sound and connected with God to be able to withstand that in his faith.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties in what you said earlier. When someone hits that initial, someone dies, your life goes to shit.
Mm-hmm.
Withstanding that, to ask kind of a side question, do you think having that strong spiritual connection makes it easier in your religious endeavors to withhold tragedies?
Yeah, definitely. Like growing in your faith will growing in your faith and growing in your understanding will always make the little small defeats a little bit easier to swallow. It's not going to make it paradise, you know. It's still going to suck when stuff like that happens, but you know, and sometimes those are going to shake your faith. Those are going to test your faith, but sometimes those things are there for a reason, to bring you closer to God, to force you to realize, now, wait a minute, I'm not in control of everything like I thought I was. Maybe there's something bigger out there that I need to look to realize that, like, you know, I can't do all this on my own. So, but I guess to answer your question about like individual versus community, like ultimately it's both. Like, yes, you need that individual, like personal connection and a practical understanding of things. And I think that's largely where I've grown over these past few years, because even though I haven't been going to church, I've been listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, reading books. I've been, you know, getting information from all these different places, and that's been fulfilling to me in a way that church never was, and the churches that I went to were not going to do that. And to be fair, there's probably no church that will do all the things that I've done, because church just can't do that for you. Like,
yeah.
There's a limited scope to what church can do. So I mean, like, yes, an individual understanding is extremely important, and that will help you grow. But eventually, you know, you'll get to the point where, like I am, like, you know, you grow so much as an individual, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm starting to have questions. I need to direct these to people. I need to have a community to help me when I'm going through things. And at that point, you're going to need a church community. So, I mean, obviously there's pros and cons to both sides of things, but like, they're both important in their own ways, and it just kind of depends on what stage you are in life. And I'm not saying people shouldn't go to church or people should go to church. Like, it just kind of depends, like, where you are and what exactly you need.
Yeah, it's very, that whether you need to go, you don't need to go, that's very personal, and what you're going through and how you're processing everything, pretty much. And it's on a person-by-person basis.
Yeah, and when I say, like, I'm not saying you need to go to church. I think Christians should go to church. But if you're not necessarily a Christian and you're still kind of questioning things, like, you're not obligated to go to church.
Or if you're not able to.
Yeah, or if you're not able to, or if, you know, there's a pandemic or something and you don't want to go because you don't want to get the Roni or whatever.
I remember during, like, Christmas with the youth group, we would go to the hermits and just visit them.
Yeah, I mean, because, like, they physically can't go.
Yeah.
It's different that's a different scenario.
It's all based on the limitations. If you can or can't go, whatever the reason is, still you can take that time and personally evolve.
Yeah.
So personal is important, and group cultural is important, but if you can't have one, at least you can focus on the other and improve your life still. Yeah,
and even if you're going to church and you have, like, that group community aspect, that does not mean neglect your individual aspect. Like, obviously you should, you know, pray and read the Bible, but I mean, like, maybe that's not necessarily what you need. Maybe you need to, because, like, for me, when I was growing up, it's like all I heard was the same, like, Bible passages over and over again, and I was like, I'm not reading the Bible because I've heard it a million times. So the first thing I went to was YouTube, because that's what was interesting to me, and that's what captivated my interest. And then I went to books, and then I went to podcasts, and now, I mean, like, I have all kinds of, like, sources that are not just, random shit I read on the internet.
And sometimes
But by the way, for, people at home, I don't think bad words are bad words. So I don't know if that's going to offend certain Christian audiences, but I don't give a shit.
Fuck, shit, pussy,
They're
ass.
Yeah,
But-
words are words. They're relative to the culture, and that's a whole different
Though
topic.
also,
But yeah, anyway.
it kind of, with words, it kind of falls into certain scenarios. We're kind of having a nice casual conversation. Now, if you're like speaking in a big group for your job, do not say those curse words.
It depends on the situation. I'm not going to offend you guys. I'm
Yeah.
not hurting you. There's nothing wrong with
We
me
all
saying
have a
shit.
good understanding of each other and our
If I say I'm going to go take a shit or I'm going to go take a dump, you know what I mean. You know what's going to happen. I'm not offending anyone.
rather you say
now,
take
if
a
I say
shit,
that in front of
honestly.
my mom, she's going to be like, why'd you say that? I'm going to be like, because I got to take a dump. She's going to be like, well, why'd you say the shit word? And I'm going to be like, because I had to take a dump. And then, anyway, point is, she's going to get offended by it. So I'm not going to say it in front of her. And that's situational. So, anyway, that I'll get off my soapbox. Yeah.
I had
bad
a
words aren't bad
question lined
words,
up,
they're
and it
relative.
just...
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. So now you, as someone who is becoming more stronger in their faith, individually, spiritually, and all that good shit, have you ever had a time where you just question, am I a Christian? Do I really believe this?
Good question. Finally. I was waiting for this. Yes. Several times. So, the first time, this is going to be a fun story. I was a gullible child, all right?
We all were gullible children.
It took me a little while to realize that Santa Claus was not real.
Oof.
I was probably a little old to realize this. When
How
one
old
of my
were you?
I don't remember exactly. I think I was like 10 or something.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that because it might have been later. I'm not sure.
We can ask your parents.
But a friend ostracized me for believing in Santa Claus because she was like, do you really believe that Santa Claus flies around the earth in one night in a sled? I was like, but there's different time zones. He's got more time than 20. She's like, there's so many people in this world. Have you seen him flying around on these reindeer? That's ridiculous. And then I got thinking about it. I was like, damn, I think she's right. I think I've been bamboozled. I think I've been lied to. I think I've been had.
Real quick, my question is, does Bailey still believe in the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy?
This leads into that. So I went to my parents. I was like, have you been lying to me?
I'm just.
I didn't say it like that, but they're like, yeah, it's not real. So, because I was at that age where they can reveal it to me that Santa Claus isn't real or whatever. So I was like, oh well, that sucks. And then the next day I was like, wait a minute. So the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy aren't real? And then I went to them. I was like, so the Easter Bunny and Tooth Fairy aren't real? And they're like, no, we made that up too. And so then I got the next rational thing
The next
in my
highest
mind
power.
was, wait a minute. Is Christianity real? Is God real?
And that's how Dave became an atheist.
Wow.
That's a genuine laugh.
That's
right
deep.
there.
No, that's not how it happened.
Okay. Well, okay, so me being whatever age I was, I rationalized. I didn't ask my parents this, but I was like, well, there's a lot of people that go to church, and there's a lot of churches that I see, and they're all across the world, not just here. So it would be a pretty elaborate ruse for the entire world to be coming up with this thing just to screw me and lie to me. So I just assumed, I was like, okay, well, it's still true. But that was the first time it dawned on me as a possibility that it's not a thing, because it was just an assumption that I grew up with. And then a couple years later, I was like, well, because I met a couple friends who were atheists, and I was like, well, I've never really considered what the world would look like if God weren't real. So I sat on my couch for about an hour, and I lived in the atheist world for about an hour. I was like, okay.
Scary place, isn't it?
It is. And I was like, well, there's no God. There's nothing after this life. There's no point in any of this. Anything I do, it doesn't matter. And I was like, wait a minute. this is terrifying. Why would anyone want to believe in this? And I never went back to that.
So sad.
Sorry.
And that's when Michael became the agnostic theist.
Yeah. So, anyway, there were a number of other things. I think probably the biggest thing was when my grandma passed away. You guys know her. So she, obviously, she was like a second mother to me. You know, I was really close to her, and she had cancer. And that was, I think she passed away when I was 13.
Yeah, because we had art class together.
Yeah. So, you know, she was a big member of like that side of the family, and like everybody was praying for her, and everybody in the church was praying for her. She was like, everybody knew her, you know, everybody was praying for her, including me, and she still died. That didn't do anything. So I was like, I mean, that wasn't like the moment, you know, but like that was another, I guess,
Hurdle.
Yeah. Another straw on the camel's back. Maybe not the one to break the camel's back, but there was that. And then, you know, that period of time in my life, there was a lot of people dying. Just 2 years earlier on my birthday, my great-grandmother had passed away. And then a couple months either before or after my grandmother passed away, her brother passed away from cancer also. And then literally a month or two later, my cat that I had my whole life got hit by a car. And yeah, so basically everybody was dying on me. Like half my family was basically like gone because like that part of the family that like we used to get together for like
Everything.
Yeah, like different holidays and stuff, and like now we just don't do that because the big people of the family just aren't there. I mean, we sometimes get together like once a year or whatever.
Yeah, but they were like that major unifying force.
Yeah, really. So that was a doubt thing, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I guess I kind of struggled in like middle school and high school with females, women wanting to get a girlfriend because I see all my friends in happy relationships. I was like, man,
Except me.
I just want that for a little bit, you know?
Well, if it makes you feel better, my first relationship was fucking awful.
Well,
They generally are. Though.
yeah, it's okay. I haven't had good experiences, so can't mostly.
Did yours get knocked up by a dude 2 foot shorter than you?
I don't know. I don't know how tall he is. I mean, she's married, but
Well, I mean, within a month of you guys breaking up.
oh, I don't think so. I don't remember. I mean, if it happened, I didn't know. But anyway, I'm sorry. So basically, I would find somebody, have a crush, and then pray to God that I would be able to date that person, and then usually some terrible, gut-wrenching, heartbreaking thing would happen, and this would happen literally over and over and over and over and over again. And I was like, what the fuck? Am I cursed? Does God hate me? Why is God not answering my prayers? What's the point? And then I got to a point where I was just so frustrated that this happened so many times that I just kind of stopped talking to God for a while. I was just pissed off. And I was like, this was probably about like 5 years ago or something like that. Maybe 4, I don't know. So I didn't like denounce Christianity or my beliefs or anything. I still implicitly held those beliefs.
But you took a pause.
I was just questioning the character of God and why exactly. And then it really dawned on me, like, you know, I've believed all these things all my life because people have told me to believe them. And they're not benefiting me. At least not right now. They're not. You know, praying to God's not doing anything. So what's the point? So I took a step back and, you know, for like a good probably half a year to a year or so, I just wasn't really active with praying or talking to God or going to church or anything. So I think, I don't know if this was like intentional or whatever, but I always intended to read a couple books. And just one day I felt the compulsion to buy 23 Minutes in Hell and 90 Minutes in Heaven. Very similar titled books with diametrically opposite stories, but basically they're supposed near-death experiences of people who have gone to hell and heaven. Now, obviously, I remember the 23 minutes in hell a lot more because that
Sounds awful.
You told me about that one.
we'll talk about it more in future episodes. But it was a like a moment for me that, because like, you know, I've known like about what hell is, but for it to be like a first person experience of it and a narrated thing, and I mean some of it was a little bit out there and some of it felt a little embellished, but a lot of it, because it was a re-released issue, he footnoted everything he saw with scripture. So he's like, I saw this, and then you look up that verse and it's literally describing that thing that's in the Bible. And he takes a very humble approach in it. The guy's name is Bill Wees. He takes a very humble approach, and he's like, look, at the end of the book, he's like, look, I don't care if you believe that this happened to me. It doesn't matter to me. All I care about is if you look at what the Bible has to say. I'm just a signpost for the scripture. Just go read what the Bible has to say about it, and make your own conclusions from there. I don't care if you believe me. This is just what I experienced. And it was that, and then I saw a video of him giving this story, which he's gone to several places now. He's kind of gotten famous from it, which is a little sketchy. But anyway, I guess I'm coming back a little bit now and maybe questioning some of it, but it was definitely a moment that led me more into understanding things, and that got me interested. And then I started going into apologetics and found a channel basically giving like science for young earth creationism, which I had never heard before. I don't hold to that anymore, but I had never heard of it, and it was far deeper than anything I'd learned at church. And then I found about a philosophy channel that we're going to get into in future episodes that are like really foundational to basically the things that I learned that grew my understanding. So, I mean, yes, that was a long-winded answer, but yes, I experienced doubt, and any Christian who is, you know, being honest, will say that they've experienced doubt, but it's what you do with that doubt that either determines that's going to propel you into becoming either a stronger Christian or a weaker Christian or not a Christian at all. So, I mean, it depends on what you do with it.
So I got two things tied to that. With 28 minutes in hell,
23 minutes.
23 minutes in hell, even though it seems like you are questioning a lot of that now, what matters is it connected and allows you to deepen your spirituality and your understanding of Christianity and your beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you holding that skepticism now as someone who has learned more and gone through more. I appreciate that.
That's the. I don't know if you guys can hear that. David's dog is like having nightmares.
She's having them
And
puppy
second,
dreams.
This is kind of a two-part that ties into each other. Looking back on your questioning of God, questioning of religions, do you look back at it now and go, this all happened for a reason, this was to make me stronger, this was using my God-given ability to question and to allow me to learn? So to tie that in, do you believe everything happens for a reason? There's a greater purpose in all this?
I don't know if I want to say everything happens for a reason, because that
I get
can cause problems in a generalized sense. If you say everything happens for a reason and you can't find a reason, then you're going to say this didn't happen for a reason. You're going to say there is no reason for this.
Or you'll make up a false reason.
Yeah, or you'll make up a reason, or you'll disillusion yourself or whatever.
Or if the reason doesn't present itself to you immediately.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, at the moment, you know, I was like, why is this happening? What is it, you know? What's the point? And obviously now, yeah, I would 100% say that happened for a reason, because that actually did. Like, I am not just somebody that, you know, spouts out Bible verses as answers to questions. I actually have like done research on stuff, and like I have things that are more core to me, that mean more to me than just someone else telling me what it says. And like especially in the church I went to, you know, it's like, let's talk about the Bible, and we're going to talk about this, and we're never going to question the fact that the Bible you know, we're not going to question its authority. We're not going to question like where it came from. How was it even made? Is it really 100% accurate? I mean, like, these were never questions in church. It was just assumed. And like, those are pretty foundational. If you're a skeptic, you're going to have to question like, okay, you're telling me to believe this because you're citing this book, but can I trust that book? Like, that's the logical next question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, obviously, spoiler alert, I did find that, especially the New Testament at least, is very reliable. And we'll talk about that in a later episode, but I'm not super informed on the Old Testament, but that's a much larger research topic. So, I mean, I just haven't gotten there yet, but yeah.
And I believe, and this is just my personal belief, anybody with any religion should question how valid
The validity.
Yeah. They should look up sources. They should get to understand. And I guess it's just preaching for a more understanding. And it's okay to question. It's okay because to question is the first step to finding an answer.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you don't ask questions, you're not going to get answers. And if you go to people and you have questions and they shun you for having those questions, then you shouldn't go to those people.
Yeah. I mean, and because we're all humans, we are not all knowing.
Yeah.
I mean, our human forms are going to ask questions. We'll ask God, why is this happening? Or, hey.
You might not get an answer.
Hey,
Job didn't get an answer.
Yeah.
We were talking about that earlier. Were we talking about this?
I brought it up.
Before?
I brought it up.
Yeah. So, I mean,
but
Job didn't know what happened, and he died and didn't know what happened. I mean, thousands of years later, we're talking about him.
Boom. But I believe, just to be honest with yourself, you have to ask questions, and you need to find your answers.
Yeah.
Because everyone's answer, Christian-wise, is going to be different. We're all different people.
Yeah.
Just like how you question religion, someone's going to question it in a different way. And someone's going to find different answers, and not necessarily different, but different interpretations of things and why this means this to them. That's the beauty of the human condition.
Yeah, there were some
different.
people. There were some people I was talking to a couple of weeks ago that were like, it was basically specifically like what my view as a Christian on this certain thing would be, and I'm like, because they were talking about how they would relate to certain people that are basically very different from them. Long story short, I won't reveal all the information, but I was like, well, really, you just got to meet them where they are and understand that they have a different schema on life. They're going to view things differently. And if you're going to have effective conversations with them, you have to be able to understand them and get to know them. And I mean, that's really the start of it.
That's kind of meta.
Yeah.
When you think about it. That's what we've done, and that's what we're doing. And we're all growing.
Yeah.
And even though we all believe different things, some things we can relate to, like core fundamentals. Like, for example, don't be a dick.
Yeah, you don't. We agree on the golden rule. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, and like, even though we might vary on some things, for all three of us, we kind of have some core fundamentals that we can relate to. Even though for you, it's like Christianity believes. For you, agnostic theism. For me, I'm a filthy atheist.
We're all very different, but we're also very, very much alike.
Yeah. And we're willing to meet the other and to understand where we're each coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why we can do this podcast.
That's the beauty of it.
I think I was going to ask a question relating to that, but I just want to say this blanket statement. I think that's genuinely what we all as humans need to do more of.
Yes.
Whether you're Islamic, Jewish, Hindi, Buddhist. I think genuinely that's all just what we need to all get a better understanding of why everything means to us, what it means, why we follow each doctrines, and understanding that can help people get closer to their spirituality, because then they might have a question. Hey, this person asked this. I don't necessarily have an answer, but I want to find that answer.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to understand each other if we're just going to say you're wrong because I'm right, and that's the extent of your logic. You have to have conversations.
Yeah, well, not even just in religion, but in anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the greatest minds come up with crazy things because they argue about it, they agree to disagree, and then they all kind of work together.
Yeah, they have a community.
I mean, that's how we got like super complicated math, computers, technology. That's how we're doing this podcast, because I bet whoever came up with the idea of podcast, him and his buddy were yelling at each other for a little bit.
But to get a little more
and then
back,
work together.
to bring this back to the general theme of questioning Bailey.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you ever felt persecuted or judged wrongfully for your beliefs on the surface? Because when that happens, usually there's not a good understanding of your beliefs.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why we're doing these interviews, is because when you think of Christian or atheist, you think of what you think of, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. So, I mean, I think, thankfully, around here, a lot of people are Christian. We're in the South, so there's not a particular negative view with most people, because most people around here are also Christian. Now, if I go up to someone I know that is Christian and tell them that my friend is atheist, they're immediately going to have like a roll in their eyes, and they're just gonna kind of, you know, they're gonna have a certain reaction because of their certain view of atheism.
You tell me every time.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think. I mean, there are probably some times where, you know, like I was talking about with a friend. I don't know if I told you or you, but I was talking with a friend, and we were like, when a gay person comes up to a Christian and asks you, what do you believe? They're not asking, what do you believe in an existential sense about like God and stuff. They're asking if you hate them. Because there is a stereotype, partly on the fault of Christians being hateful and ignorant of gay people. And so, I mean, like, when it comes, I think culturally that has been a very big, like, battle, I think. And I don't think it needs to be. I think we can agree to disagree, but not be hateful towards one another. So, I mean, I guess there have been some times when, like, someone from that kind of community might have a preconceived notion of me. They generally aren't, like, upfront and, you know,
hey, I think you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, they're not
this.
like hateful to me about it, or at least the like handful of times.
But they're kind of just.
But they might be standoffish.
For you to say something that's like, yeah, you're fucked up for that one.
You might you know how you can kind of like like get a cold read on someone, like you know you can kind of tell when get a reading on somebody.
And plus, a lot of time they're already on the defensive due to how they're portrayed in the world.
I mean, sometimes there's just social cues, like you can tell, but like. Just to answer your question, generally no. I haven't had much persecution. I probably will eventually, because I don't plan on staying around here forever. But I mean, right now, I haven't experienced too much.
You also don't come off as an asshole, so I think you'll be okay, kid.
Well, I mean, again, you could have someone who is an anti-theist and very antagonistic towards religion, and that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, just tell them to eat a dick.
Terrible.
Yeah, call David up. He's a filthy atheist. He can reason with him.
Yeah, I'll be like, hey,
I don't think I can reason with them. They're as firm in their beliefs as like any radical religion, if not more.
Don't call me, because they're just gonna rip me apart.
Yeah.
Oh, so you don't know why you believe that there is something, but you believe there's
Dr.
something?
Pepper.
Yeah, but fuck.
Hit me with more questions.
One thing.
Yeah. David hasn't been asking me questions. Ask me a question, David.
Well, I was going on a good little tangent in the beginning, but we've had this conversation, but kind of the idea of like paranormal ghosts, spirits, stuff like that, because we've had this conversation with you, and like, you know, my opinion, you know, Michael's opinion, we know your opinion, so kind of explain to us
the audience
how kind of the paranormal works both from your viewpoint and your religious viewpoint.
Okay. So, for people at home, I was a paranormal investigator for 7 years, something like that. I guess the group kind of fizzled out, so I guess technically if it were to reform, I technically kind of still am. But I haven't been on an investigation in a few years. But basically, I grew up with the fascination of the paranormal and like ghosts and stuff, and I always believed in that, and I always wanted to like see if it was legit because I've seen all these TV shows, and so someone I knew actually founded a group and was like, hey, when I was a kid, I was really fascinated by the paranormal, so how about we make like a youth group and I can like supervise it. And so we did that, and so I mean I became paranormal investigator, and then like there's different like classifications for spirits and stuff, and like under the Christian worldview, technically spirits that aren't either angels or demons don't fit into that. Technically, by the books, spirits that are, say, intelligent but not necessarily demonic, or residual spirits that are just kind of like on a tape loop, they just do the same thing over and over again, and they don't interact with people. Technically, that shouldn't exist if you either just go to heaven or hell when you die. So I don't know exactly how that fits in. I do believe that the supernatural and paranormal exists. But even Jesus references ghosts, actually, because he says, you know, because I forget where it was, but he mentions, you know, someone asked, there, I think it was in Matthew or Mark, someone asked, you know, is that a ghost? And Jesus says, no, if it were a ghost, you could see through it. So, I mean, he references ghosts, which isn't proof that they exist. It's just acknowledging that they also had a belief in spirits. So he didn't outright deny it, though. He, you know, so I don't know. I'm not saying that proves it, but that was something mentioned. So I mean, like, I don't know how it fits. I know they're basically, I've heard certain Christians say that quote unquote intelligent spirits, which are like spirits you can talk to, obviously.
Which would be dope, by the way.
You know, and by the way, obviously, I was a paranormal investigator. I did interact with spirits. I stayed away from the demonic cases because I was not about that life.
Sounds lit.
I just didn't trust that and didn't want to open myself up to that. So anything that was suspected to be demonic or felt oppressive, I walked away from. But I have interacted with spirits, and if under this view they are just demons trying to deceive me, they didn't really achieve much because they were just there. They didn't latch onto me and follow me home and torment me.
And you're still a good Christian boy.
Relatively, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, like, if they were just trying to deceive me so that they can possess me or manipulate me later, they didn't do that, and they were fairly harmless. So, I mean, it depends on who you talk to. A lot of Christians are going to be weary of it and say that, oh, that's just an occult practice. You should stay away from it. Paranormal investigation is kind of a gray area. We never used like Ouija boards or did seances or anything. We used technology. We used K2s, cameras, digital recorders, that kind of thing. So I mean, we were trying to scientifically, empirically verify that something that you could not see, or maybe you could see, maybe felt or heard, or, you know, something that's disembodied exists. And we caught lots of evidence of that and have a YouTube channel, and so we might talk about that later. But yeah, I think it's legit. I don't know how exactly it fits into the Christian worldview, if it doesn't fit neatly into a box like Christians want it to be, but it exists.
And I think the main thing with like the view of it being a cult and stuff is the kind of like, not in a derogatory way, but the kind of like witchcraft kind of way of like seances. I kind of follow and believe that the Ouija boards are more like kind of children's toy they don't really do anything.
Are you down?
I disagree.
Are you
disagree
down for
very
a Ouija
strongly.
board?
No,
But like
I'm
the
not.
seances and the more ritualistic aspects, people view more as like witchcraft and stuff
when
like
when
that.
it comes to Ouija boards, like you can just play around with it and nothing happened, but you are flirting with the devil. I do not trust that. Anything that is like explicitly occult-esque or demonic, I
but
don't fuck with that.
I see kind of that's why most people
I just
see
distrust it.
Like how
But-
y'all did it was more I guess you could say more scientific in its approach.
Cold and calculated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, there's a certain aspect of it when you're investigating, not to be too long on this tangent, but
Oh no, it's interesting.
there's a certain aspect of it that's related to feeling, because if you got chills on your arm, you can pull up the camera and say, look, I got chills on my arm. Or if you are feeling a certain way, there was one specific location I remember very vividly. We were asking questions, and one of the members dressed up as a Confederate soldier, just to stir some stuff up, just to see, because it was a plantation house. So he dressed up as a Confederate soldier. We were having a conversation with this child spirit whose father had died in the war, and we were having like a back and forth conversation between it, and we just felt this strong, sad, intense emotion. We were all like tearing up and crying, and we got quiet, and we could feel that in the room. And that kind of thing, like, you can't, I mean, yeah, you're recording cameras, but I mean, like, you can't like say like,
You can't capture
you
emotion
can't,
like that.
yeah, you can't verify that scientifically, like that's an experience that you're having. So I mean, like, there is a sixth sense aspect to it, like you feel things.
Oh, I agree.
And you can't prove that, but
you can
it's
describe
there.
it.
Yeah,
Even spiritually,
yeah.
you can feel something with you.
I think it's all related in that sense. Like, when the supernatural sense is a similar sense that you would have with like the Holy Spirit or God or demons. It's the same kind of mental faculty. You interact with things that aren't visibly there.
Coming up next, Southern Bailey, the new denomination.
No, I'm not starting a church.
So, branching off of that, what is your thoughts when you just fucking kick the bucket after a nice long life? Hopefully, knock on wood, because you don't deserve to die. You're a pretty solid dude.
I don't know. Maybe I do.
Nah, I disagree.
According to you. Sorry, go ahead.
But let's say you did everything right in your life. God loves you. All that hoopla. Not to say that's hoopla, but just to
I
get
get
to
what
the
you're
point.
saying. Go ahead.
Not to offend any of you snowflakes out there. But what happens? What is your process? Like, I know how to go to the DMV and get a license and go get a tag. I can go to the store and order something, but what happens when you die?
If I knew, that's the $1 million question. So, I mean, I've heard of like a lot of out-of-body experiences where, people see like a bright light and then they see Jesus and then they go to heaven, or they see a bright light and then they fall into a dark pit and they're in hell. I don't know. I've been looking into out-of-body experiences because those are really fascinating, and I like to see like where some of them line up and where some of them don't, and just kind of evaluate them on a case-by-case notice. I haven't looked into a lot of them, but I'm looking into more of them now, or I'm going to be. But I don't know exactly. I mean, the classical understanding in Christianity is, if you're saved, you go to heaven, and then you kind of hang out in heaven for a little while. And then when the new creation comes, you go down to the new earth and the new heaven. They kind of become one, and you're a part of the like the new kingdom, and you do Jesus stuff.
Like eugenics, selective breeding.
I guess, but
Selective good boys.
It'll just be a bunch of dogs. They had it right the whole time.
But that is the view that I grew up with. As I've been looking more into it and listening to other people from different denominations, that's not necessarily what happens. Because, of course, you have Catholics who believe in purgatory. Some Orthodox believe in toll houses, but that's kind of like a up in the air thing.
What is a toll house?
Toll house is basically like you're in a scenario and you're being tempted by a demon to do a certain sin, and there's an angel there like guiding you, and you either pass or fail the test and you move on to the next
like
one.
exploiting your weak points.
It's kind of like purgatory, but if you
of-
pass it and you keep moving on up, then you get.
And there's also that classic idea of like
that might be a
judgment.
bastardization of it, though. but-
Before you go to heaven and hell, there's that kind of judgment, almost like a review of your life, giving your stats.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of people actually having dreams where they were basically sitting watching a playback of their life, and they saw every decision they ever made and how that affected the path that they took in life. And I'm like, because I mean, I the last night my grandmother was alive, she was dreaming, but she was talking in her sleep. She was coming up with stuff that like doesn't really make sense. She was like confusing. Like I had an uncle, and she was saying that like he's doing gardening, and like he doesn't garden, but the person that he lived next to did do gardening. So maybe she was conflating that. So like I don't know if she was like. She kept going on and on and on, and I was just like, I was talking to my mom. I was like, well, it's like she's reliving her life and kind of conflating it all together.
It could kind of be like the body isn't fully interpreting what the spirit is going through in that aspect.
So yeah, so I mean, like, that's the $1 million question. I don't know. I've heard the other view that when you're a Christian and you die, you just go to be with Jesus, and you're just kind of with him in a temporal state until the rapture, and then you are given a new body. Well, it's the same body, but a renewed body, basically, and then you reign in you help Jesus reign in like the new creation. That is something that I'm having to look into, because I'm not 100% certain on Revelation either, because when I grew up, like, that was something that my church basically avoided talking about, because it is a notoriously difficult book to interpret.
And also
there are a lot of people that want to try and say it's literal, and like this is a code that we can use to crack to figure out when the end of the world's coming.
And
there's other people that say it's metaphorical, and it's actually just a lot of Old Testament allusion, and the whole thing's a dream also. So fun fact, there's that.
That just adds another layer of tomfoolery.
It's very complicated. So I'm not going to sit here and say I've got it all figured out, because I don't know. But basically, I don't know what happens when you die. All I know is I'm gonna try to be a good Christian boy, and not. And when I say good Christian boy, I say that like in a facetious kind of way. Like I'm not gonna sit here and I don't think I'm a good person. You guys do, I don't. But
you're working on becoming a better person.
Yeah, I mean I'm always trying to do that. But like, I want to try and like grow in my faith and further my understanding of things and grow in that regard, and that in my eyes is kind of remaining in good standing with Christianity, as long as you're not like getting like either you can either get closer to God or you can go farther away, and everything
and
you
if you're
do
stagnating, because he's moving ahead of you and you're not keeping pace.
Yeah. Well, God doesn't move. I would say God is there.
But
if you aren't getting closer to him, you're going farther away. So, I mean, it's a binary thing. Like, everything you do, every choice you make, either you're going to be getting closer to God or you're going to be getting further away. And sometimes it's baby steps. Sometimes it's giant steps.
But it's still a step.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my eyes, as long as I can continue to grow and not be lazy, I mean, there's probably going to be a time in my life where I'm not going to be as active as I am now, but I don't want to ever completely give up on searching and growing and understanding more. So yeah. So hopefully that answers the question.
As a Christian, because at one point I was Christian, so I'm going to say we at this moment. Learning, we're essentially told Jesus can save you from every sin, essentially. Do you feel there's a certain sin that is weighed heavier, or like you do this, you got a long uphill fucking battle, you piece of shit?
Okay, so this is a yes and no question. In my understanding, sin is sin. Jesus looks at it all the same. But different sins will have different effects on you. So, I mean, if you lie to the police officer when he pulls you over and say, you know, I was going this speed, and he says you're going that speed, and then you might, you know, have to deal with the consequences of that, versus, you know, if you told your mom you ate that, if your mom asked you if you ate all the peanut butter and you say no, it was the other one, and then the other one gets in trouble, like, that doesn't really affect you, that affects them. But
You're still a piece of shit.
yeah, but I mean, these are bad examples, but what I'm saying is, like, certain things, if you go knock up somebody, you just might have a child now, and that's going to affect you for the rest of your life.
But you knocked them up, so that knocking up means you're having a baby. Bitch is pregnant. There's a bun in the oven. If you fucking, that's different. Just
But what I'm saying is that's something that's going to affect you for the rest of your life.
of course, yeah.
So so I mean, yeah. So I mean, like, there's things that are just, you know, little slow knockbacks, and there are other things that are just going to be bigger setbacks for you, and especially habitually, certain things are going to be, if you have a habit of doing something, the more you do it, it's going to be harder to break that habit.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that can also not kind of sounds more not necessarily religious, but also just kind of fundamental real life, because you're giving like really real life examples.
I was trying
and
to
how
be
it affects
practical
on a
about it. That's the
physical level.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what.
I mean, that's true. If you do something, you have to live with that action, no matter how big or small, and it might not affect you majorly,
Or at
or
that
it might
moment.
affect your whole life and put you on a different path.
Yeah, that's why I guess this might be a hot take, but all sin is basically it is called a sin to protect you, because the way I see sin is either it hurts you, it hurts someone else, or it hurts your relationship with God. And you may not see the full implications of it, but it is called sin for a reason. And obviously, grasping with why certain things or certain sins will go about how you handle that. But obviously, that, I mean, like, whatever you do, basically, I lost my train of thought.
Kind of every action has a reaction,
Yeah, I mean,
in the simplest of terms.
yeah.
See, to me, that forgiveness, how I interpret it, is first, I feel you have to accept that you sinned. Like, if I go kill someone, I have to fucking accept that and I have to live with it. So I think that's part of it.
And you also have to be honest about it.
Yeah.
You have to admit, like, you're not just doing this because the Bible says I gotta repent, so.
Yeah, and you genuinely have to accept and, in a sense, grieve over your past actions.
Yep.
And not dwell on them, but search, understand why it was wrong, genuinely want forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big thing about Christianity, too, is, like,
I believe
repentance and forgiving.
And I
because,
think
like, that's very difficult for a lot of
feel
people.
a lot of people just don't kind of get that. I can ask you, hey, do you forgive me 1,000,000 times? But if you don't see that I'm genuine about it, are you going to forgive me?
Depends on what it is. But, yeah.
And
I mean,
it just-
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So I always love asking that question. What is a sin? Are there...
We have, I think basically everything you brought up in this interview, we have episodes planned to talk about. So I think what is sin is one of those episodes.
Well, I'm just doing a generalization.
But
here.
yeah, I
we
get
are
what you're saying.
definitely digging more into this. This is going to get spicy.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people misinterpret parts like forgiveness, but that's on a whole nother tangent.
Yeah.
So, fuck, where's my... I'm sorry, guys. My train of thought is fucked today. It's been a long day.
That's fine.
Anything you need to ask while I'm searching in my brain, David?
No, I mean, pretty much we've gone through a good little decent broad spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean, future episodes, we're definitely going to dive deeper.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, super deep.
I got a two-parter again.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about moving religions?
Is that part one or is that part both parts? Or you just want me to respond to that first?
Respond to that one first.
I've thought about it. I won't say like I've thought about it like I've considered actually doing it. I've looked into other religions and seen what they've taught. But I've never had an inclination to say, okay, well, maybe they're actually right. I mean, they might be right about some things, but ultimately, in the end, the historical evidence for Jesus changes everything. And again, we're going to talk about that. Ka-chink. We're gonna have a little thing, like every time I mention, like, we're going to have another episode about that.
Bro, we need to go buy some quarters and a jar.
Yeah, we're going to, like,
The
reference
future episode jar.
We got, like, 50 episodes planned for this
I owe
so
you
far,
$40. I'll get $40 in quarters.
Okay.
That's a lot of quarters.
But yeah, basically, like, I've been interested in other religions and understanding them, at least on a fundamental level. But I've never been so intrigued by religion that I'm like, I gotta convert to this because it makes so much more sense than Christianity. Because to me, the research I've done in Christianity answers anything that I need. So I don't have a need or desire to go to something else. And I feel like other religions don't answer some of the questions that I have as well. That's a blanket statement, but we'll probably get more into that later.
Definitely. And is there anything that could make you move religions, that could change your faith? And not in a blasphemous sense, not like you're actively looking for it, but this is a question I feel everyone has to ask.
Yeah, from like the smallest little thing to like a major revelation.
Like one of the Hindi gods come down like, bitch, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And it's a hard question to really wrap your head around as someone strong in your faith.
Yeah, it's tough because, like, I would... Well, first of all, like, the things that I believe are very... Like, the things that make me believe what I believe. Like, for example, like the fact that the New Testament is very reliable, and the fact that there's good historical evidence to believe that Jesus existed, died, and rose again. It would have to first undermine that or twist that. And even if it twisted that, there have been a number of cults who have already twisted that. And so, I mean, like, yeah. I would have to have very, very firm evidence. I don't know exactly what that evidence is, but the first thing is you'd have to knock the blocks out of Christianity by taking out Jesus or changing that, in a way.
So messed. Taking out Jesus. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, you have to go after that historical evidence and say there's more to it, or, you know, and people have tried to do that, but I mean, like, nothing I've experienced has or am informed of so far has brought me to that point, and I don't think that there will be. I'm not saying that it is impossible.
It would have to be a major...
It would have to be a lot, because there's a lot of evidence that I've built up over the years, both philosophical and, like, historical and stuff like that, that just really make a compelling case for Christianity, in my opinion. So it would have to be very crafty. I'll put it that way.
So, like, as Michael was saying, a Hindi god coming down and telling you you're wrong.
And here's why.
But then I would question, okay,
am I high?
I would question, was that actually a demon? Because under the Christian view, it doesn't say that there aren't gods. Even if you look in Genesis, it mentions the other gods. It doesn't say they didn't exist. It mentions them, but it's lowercase g. And essentially, I think the overall Christian view is that they are basically fallen angels. They are false gods. So they may look good, they may appeal to certain aspects, but they may not be the one true
I
God.
mean, even Satan was an angel once.
A handsome one too.
Angel of temptation.
Yeah.
You want to fuck him? Because
Not-
he'd fuck him.
Not really, but he's very crafty.
I mean, yeah. Obviously,
That was his
that's
job.
That was my allusion to. That was what I was referencing when I said it
Yeah.
had to be very crafty, because it might be satin.
The unholy color.
the unholy fabric.
All right.
But that's a whole nother episode. Cha-ching.
Oh boy.
Is there anything else you'd like to put out here for these people on Beyond the Gates? I just
Facing the Gates.
Facing
Come
the
on, get
Gates.
the
My
name
brain
of
is
our show
absolutely
right, man.
fucked, man.
Yeah, we're not the band at the gates.
No.
We're not beyond.
All right. Well,
We're facing the gates. We're trying to get beyond the gates.
I think you guys asked a lot of good questions, and some of them that were I guess I wasn't expecting some of them, but like they were deep questions and they were not like straightforward. I think it got a good bit out of me so that people will be like, this is the kind you are. Hopefully. I don't know. I mean, like, people want to categorize what thing people are.
You
very
and your
easily.
white people.
Yeah. So
No, we are all
I mean-
white.
We are playing that though. I mean, you're the good Christian. I'm the filthy atheist.
yeah, well, I think you guys asked a bunch of good questions. I don't really have anything else. Stop dropping stuff.
I'm
Trying to give an outro. Jeez.
Yeah, you consider it.
I don't really think I have anything else. If you guys have questions for me or for you guys, because in the coming weeks we're going to have episodes with you guys also.
Yeah, it'll be pretty lit. Probably a little more professional.
Maybe less professional. Who knows? But yeah, we'll if you guys have questions for us, shoot us an email or get in contact with us on social media. The links will be in the description.
Send us. I'm only answering questions sent by pigeon mail.
Oh, look at this asshole. I'll just be happy to get
What is
questions.
pigeon mail? Am I stupid?
A
What is
carrier
that?
pigeon.
They
They have the little anklet that you put
okay.
the little note in.
I thought that was some obscure email service or something.
And
It's like,
no.
what?
And heck, maybe if we get enough questions, we could do a whole another episode.
Maybe
on
we'll
it.
do a Q&A episode.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
or maybe
so
it'll be a segment in the future of Q&As. Who
maybe.
knows?
Yeah,
But-
or maybe it's just like a lot of questions in this one topic, so let's answer them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you
Who
guys are
knows?
listening and you got any input or anything you want to ask or add into the conversation,
Yeah.
let us know, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and also while you're at it, give us a review, dude. Like, that
Yeah.
would be great. Like, give us like 5 stars,
And
dude.
a kissy face emoji.
Yeah. 5 stars, kissy face emoji. Say, I love these guys. They're the best. And share it with
as-
all your friends and tell
hold
them,
up.
tell them it's great.
As a preacher of honesty, just give us an honest review. Any review is better than a no review. I'll appreciate you and love you the same. Does not matter. Also, if you would like to follow us on, what do we have? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram?
Yeah, it's in the description.
Bada bing.
So
follow us
mentioned
there,
that.
man.
Yeah, check us out because we're going to be posting anytime there's a new episode, and also possibly like behind the scenes or like memes or whatever. I don't know how we're going to post. We're going to post stuff.
You
It's
guys
going to be
are
regular.
going to be absolutely shocked what behind the scenes look like. I am already sorry.
I don't even know because I don't know what I'm going to put on there. But yeah, it's going to happen. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, behind the
great.
scenes, it's pretty sweaty.
Yeah, it's very hot in here.
Yeah.
Are we done with this episode? You guys want to say goodbye or any other questions or anything?
Thanks for hanging out and listening to us talk with each other
Yeah,
for
this has been a long time.
however long it's been.
Probably been at least an hour at this point. I
because
don't know.
if
Hour
not
15.
if not we'd
Oh boy.
we'd be drunk and doing it anyway. So
Yeah.
You're right. We already have these conversations, so
yeah, and hopefully we get more people to jump
It's
in.
good to be asked the questions for once because usually I get asked the questions.
Yeah, you feel
by
the
people.
I feel different. I feel like I'm being interrogated. I'm not. I don't feel interrogated.
See, I love
but-
being asked questions. I love giving answers.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
just going to put a bucket on
It's a role
over your
reversal.
head for the water torture.
All right. We've been rambling, so we're gonna go ahead and end this now. So thank you guys so much for listening, and do all the things, and we'll see you next week.
Love you guys.
I love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Mwah.